For more than 2 centuries, Oak Island has been shrouded in legend, a maze of booby-trapped tunnels, mysterious symbols, and whispered rumors of forbidden treasure buried beneath Nova Scotia's soil. Generations of treasure hunters have chased its secrets, spending fortunes, risking lives, and walking away empty-handed. Many called it a hoax. Others swore the truth was simply waiting for the right moment to break the surface. And now, that moment has finally arrived. This season, Rick Lagina and his team have uncovered what experts are calling one of the most valuable archaeological recoveries in North American history, a staggering $77 million in confirmed medieval artifacts, each one pulled from depths once believed impossible to reach. Lab tests, independent metallurgical evaluations, and classified geological reports all point to the same revelation. Oak Island's treasure is real, and it's unlike anything the world expected. What they recovered isn't random debris or scattered fragments. These are engineered relics, refined gold alloys, ceremonial components, carved insignias, and ancient sealed containers designed to survive centuries underground. The evidence points to deliberate placement, advanced craftsmanship, and origins reaching back into the age of the Crusades and the shadowed era of the Knights Templar. For the first time in history, the legend has crossed into undeniable scientific reality. And as the world watches the tides of Mahone Bay roll beneath a shroud of secrecy, one truth becomes clear. Oak Island was never a myth. It was a vault, a fortress, a message carved into stone and gold, waiting for the right hands to uncover it. If you believe the truth should never stay buried, make sure to like this video, comment, subscribe below, and hit subscribe for the next chapter of this unfolding history. It began with a flicker, an unremarkable notification on an obscure online research forum, the sort where anonymous users trade rumors from archaeological sites and classified academic labs. For most, it was just another late-night thread destined to disappear. But this time, a post appeared that would ignite a global firestorm within hours, uploaded by a nameless user operating under a disposable account. The thread contained 3 blurred screenshots, each showing sections of what looked like a restricted Nova Scotia Geological Survey report. At first glance, it could have been dismissed as another Oak Island conspiracy hoax, but within seconds, researchers noticed details impossible to fabricate: official formatting, isotopic spectrometry tables, core sample depth coordinates, and most shockingly, annotations revealing that gold particles recovered from deep beneath Oak Island were not natural deposits. The data described metallurgical structures consistent with engineered medieval alloys, refined using methods documented only in 14th century Templar archives. Even more shocking was the isotopic fingerprint, a trace signature matching gold historically linked to the Knights Templar, the same mysterious order whose fleet vanished after their persecution in 1307. For centuries, historians speculated that the fleeing Templar grandmasters carried their immense treasury across the Atlantic. Until now, there was never scientific proof. Within minutes, the screenshots were copied, reposted, and downloaded across multiple platforms. Treasure hunters erupted with excitement. Skeptics dismissed it as another elaborate forgery, but metallurgists who reviewed the leaked tables noted something chilling. The isotopic ratios and purity levels were too precise, too complex, and too historically accurate for amateur fakery. A discovery like this could rewrite textbooks, redefine religious history, and escalate international ownership conflicts. And then, just as quickly as it appeared, the post vanished. The account that uploaded it was deleted. The server log showed no trace of the user ever existing. The thread was scrubbed from the forum's archives as if it had never been there at all. Those who saved the images claimed that, within minutes, an unmarked automated bot system began issuing takedown requests across multiple sites. Attempts to contact the anonymous poster returned nothing, not even a disconnected email or a dead link. It was as though the whistleblower had evaporated. Rumors spread that someone inside a restricted geological lab recognized the Oak Island coordinates and panicked when they realized the implications. Scientists who reviewed the data privately admitted that if the report was real, the gold was intentionally buried, placed by human hands centuries ago. That single conclusion threatened to expose one of the greatest historical cover-ups ever executed. Experts began questioning what forces had suppressed the truth for so long, and why someone finally risked everything to release it. Because one thing was undeniable: someone wanted the world to know. Someone wanted the secret to break open, and the world responded. Media outlets scrambled. Online communities exploded. Mahone Bay filled with journalists overnight. Cameras pointed toward the dark silhouette of Oak Island, waiting for movement. Something had shifted forever. The mystery was no longer folklore. It was evidence. As speculation erupted and the leak spiraled out of control, one detail escaped most observers: quiet, cautious movement returning to the island under fog-shrouded skies. Trucks rolled in, floodlights ignited, security tightened, and Rick Lagina himself stepped back onto Oak Island without cameras, without announcements, and without hesitation. As the digital storm raged and global speculation intensified, Oak Island, usually quiet except for seasonal tourism and the steady rhythm of excavation, transformed overnight into a zone of tense, controlled activity. It began with whispers from fishermen in Mahone Bay, who reported seeing unmarked black trucks arriving under heavy fog just before dawn. There were no film crews, no History Channel vans, no production trailers, no publicity, only hard hats, steel equipment cases, and guarded silence. Something unusual was happening. Witnesses watched as barges slowly crossed the dark water, carrying industrial drilling platforms, reinforced scaffolding, and vibration-dampening machinery of a kind never before used at the site. The entire operation unfolded like a covert military deployment, rather than a television dig. No spotlights, no commentary, no laughter, just urgency and shadows. Hours later, drone enthusiasts piloting above the island captured what would become the most analyzed footage in Oak Island's history. Rick Lagina standing at the edge of the garden shaft, his face hard and unreadable, surrounded by a skeleton crew stripped down to only the most trusted personnel. For a man who had spent a decade documenting every bolt turned and every stone lifted for the world to witness, his silence spoke louder than any broadcast. Something monumental had happened, something too sensitive for public eyes. By mid-morning, new fencing appeared around the perimeter. Warning signs went up. Guard posts were established. Even longtime crew members seemed tense, exchanging low, clipped whispers. One anonymous worker later confessed in a leaked message, "This isn't for television anymore. This is real, really real." Soon after, acoustic ground penetration scanners were positioned around the shaft, machines capable of reading dense metallic formations by vibration response. When activated, the monitors lit up with erratic but unmistakable signatures, multiple high-density objects buried deep in intentional geometric patterns, spaced too evenly to be accidental or natural. The readings showed sharp returns consistent with reinforced metal containers, chests, crates, or sealed vault segments. The structure they were detecting was not debris. It was deliberate engineering. In a rare moment caught by a telephoto lens, Rick pressed both hands against the railing, his shoulders rising and falling, the weight of decades visible in his posture. After years of ridicule, setbacks, and heartbreak, the evidence he always believed lay buried beneath Oak Island was suddenly revealing itself, but no celebration followed, only quiet determination. Production staff from the television crew reportedly objected to being shut out of the operation. Their badge access was revoked. Filming was halted without explanation. Even personal cell phones were collected before entering the active zone. The move was unprecedented. Why now? Why secrecy? What did Rick and his closest team members uncover that demanded silence? That night, observers on the mainland described a chilling scene. The island glowing under industrial floodlights, the rhythmic pulse of heavy drilling echoing off the dark water, and an unmarked helicopter hovering low before disappearing inland without broadcasting a flight code. The fog swallowed everything. Rick and Marty refused interviews. Their advisors stopped returning messages. The online explosion around the leaked geological report only intensified the mystery. The timing was too perfect, too coordinated. It was as if someone had forced the Lagina's hand, and they were racing against something unseen for the Fellowship, the core group who had chased this mystery for a lifetime. This was no longer a quest for televised adventure. It was a race against silence, bureaucracy, and forces that clearly wanted Oak Island sealed again, perhaps forever. Those who watched from afar felt a shift, an electricity in the air. A storm was building over Oak Island, one that could shake history itself, because if scanning instruments were correct, the shapes buried below the shaft were not random gold traces, but components of a vault. A structure beyond anything previously recorded in North America, a vault not meant to be found, a vault built with intention, a vault designed to protect something the world was never meant to see. And when the drilling probes finally reached the anomaly, the monitors revealed an architectural impossibility, a perfect 8-sided chamber carved beneath the island, sealed behind ancient engineering no modern machinery had ever breached. When the acoustic sensors locked onto the anomaly beneath the garden shaft, the control tent fell silent. For nearly a minute, no one spoke. On the digital screens, the returning waveforms formed patterns too uniform to belong to collapsed debris or natural mineral pockets. Instead, the image revealed sharp, angular reflections, repeating in exact intervals, geometry that suggested architecture, not geology. As technicians adjusted the frequency scans, the outline grew clearer and then unmistakable. An octagon, perfectly shaped, symmetrical down to fractional measurements. The octagon was the sacred architectural signature of the Knights Templar, the emblem of resurrection, divine order, and eternal guardianship. It was a symbol found in medieval fortresses, European commanderies, and holy chapels constructed by the order before their sudden destruction in the early 1300s. Yet here it was, hidden deep beneath the soil of a remote island off the coast of Nova Scotia, engineered with a precision many modern architects could not achieve without advanced computation. The deeper the scanners penetrated, the more impossible the structure appeared. The vault's roof formed a domed curvature so mathematically accurate that engineers in the tent stared, stunned, whispering that the tolerances matched modern laser-guided construction. Embedded within the dome were resonance pockets that responded to pressure and vibration, suggesting a hydraulic trap system, a mechanism capable of redirecting seawater into the chamber through limestone channels designed to collapse the vault if tampered with incorrectly for centuries. Rumors described Oak Island's flood tunnels as primitive or accidental. But now the truth was undeniable. It was engineered sabotage, built by minds centuries ahead of their time, intended to protect something unimaginably valuable. As the probe descended through the newly bored access tube, the live camera feed flickered through swirling silt and ancient sediment. Then, slowly, the interior walls came into focus. Carved directly into the stone were Templar crosses, their edges still razor-sharp despite 700 years underwater. Some were plain, others bore ornate flourishes, arranged in ceremonial alignment pointing inward like compass markers. The camera panned further, revealing Latin inscriptions, faint but visible beneath mineral deposits. One phrase stood out with chilling clarity: non serviam, I will not yield. The room fell still. The words were more than defiance. They were a declaration of resistance, a vow against the monarchs and church authorities who hunted the Templars to extinction. The vault was not simply storage. It was a message, carved in stone to outlast oppression and time itself. As the probe swung slowly across the chamber floor, metallic interference spiked on the instrument panel. Multiple dense objects returned high-intensity readings. Clusters of uniform shapes buried beneath the silt, consistent with reinforced chests or sealed containers. Engineers exchanged glances, their voices trembling. This was not scattered debris, nor pirate spoils, nor random wreckage. This was organized deposition, placed deliberately and sealed with intention. Then the sensors detected something else, something even more astonishing. Beneath the central floor lay a second structure, a solid stone plinth radiating readings heavier than any known alloy. As they mapped beneath it, the instruments detected a hollow void extending at an engineered downward angle, connecting to another hidden cavity beyond reach. A deep breath swept the tent. The vault everyone thought was the end was only the beginning. Rick stood motionless, staring into the glowing monitors. Marty's voice, low and strained, broke the silence. This isn't just treasure. This is a system, a designed system. If the Templars built multiple interconnected vaults, forming a network beneath the island, potentially beneath Mahone Bay, then the implications were world-altering. This was not a stash of gold. It was an engineered sanctuary, a sacred repository meant to protect something far greater than wealth. The feed from the probe began to crackle as water pressure shifted unexpectedly. A tremor rippled across the chamber, sending vibrations through the stone walls. Systems lit up in warning red as the flood traps activated momentarily. The ancient mechanisms still alive, still responsive, still guarding. Everyone froze, waiting for the chamber to collapse. But the tremor passed. The vault held. The realization washed over everyone present. The Templars built something intended to survive centuries, long enough for someone worthy to find it. And when the robotic arms scraped the sediment away from the vault's surface, the first artifact emerged, fragmented, fused, and glowing faintly beneath the lights, proving beyond doubt what the world refused to believe. The probe steadied, its stabilizers humming as the robotic arms swept aside layers of waterlogged sediment, clay, and mineral crust that had sealed the chamber's floor for more than 7 centuries. Every movement was excruciatingly slow. One wrong vibration could trigger the ancient hydraulic trap system and flood the vault forever. The lights illuminated swirling particles suspended in black water, and then something emerged from the darkness, a fragment of fused gold, its surface shimmering with reflections of violet and cold white from the LED lamps. At first, no one understood what they were looking at. It appeared jagged, like molten metal that had been violently compressed. But as the robotic arm lifted the fragment into full view, the truth became undeniable. Engraved along the fractured surface were ceremonial etchings, crosses, geometric lattices, and faint inscriptions, symbols associated with Templar reliquaries, sacred objects built to house holy relics, relics believed lost forever after the Order's destruction by King Philip IV. Rick's voice cracked through the radio headset, barely above a whisper. "It's real, it's all real." The tent erupted, not in shouts, but in stunned silence. After decades of ridicule, skepticism, and unending setbacks, the impossible lay inches from the camera lens, physical evidence of a medieval artifact sealed in a technologically engineered vault beneath a remote Canadian island. It was proof that the legends were not myths, not fantasies, not madness. They were history. The team continued clearing debris, revealing shattered glass vessels fused into the gold, their curvature suggesting chalice forms or reliquary containers once meant to protect sacred contents. Laboratory analysis later confirmed that the glass contained trace mineral compositions identical to medieval liturgical glasswork produced only in 14th century France and Italy. Embedded within the fused mass were organic residues, minute strands of carbonized material. Initial carbon dating placed them at 1350 AD, plus or minus 20 years, perfectly overlapping the collapse and disappearance of the Templar fleet. Then, as more sediment was removed, a rectangular shape materialized beneath the collapsed fragments. A half-buried chest, its iron bands fused by corrosion, its wood long fossilized into stone. When the probe carefully pried it open, the hinges snapped with a sharp metallic crack that echoed through the speakers. The interior revealed a glittering cascade of fused gold rivered through the compartment, as if the chest had been exposed to extreme heat and pressure before sealing. The mass gave off faint magnetic interference, causing the monitors to pulse and flicker. But what lay beneath the chest was even more extraordinary. The sediment concealed a smooth stone slab, perfectly cut, unlike anything else in the chamber. When ultraviolet light was directed across its surface, hidden inscriptions ignited across the stone in glowing lines of ghostly blue. Gloria in terra nova, glory in the new land. The phrase stunned the archaeologists. For centuries, rumors claimed the Templars fled to a new world, far beyond the control of European monarchs and church inquisitors. Most historians dismissed such legends as myth, but here it was, carved in stone, preserved beneath engineering strategies far beyond their era. Then a second layer of markings emerged, rune-like etchings, distinctly Norse in design, arranged into geometric coordinate grids. Scholars would later determine that those symbols correspond exactly with underwater geological formations off the Mahone Bay coastline, a network of voids shaped like man-made caverns. The implications struck like thunder. The vault beneath the garden shaft was not a singular treasure chamber. It was part of a larger network stretching into the sea, possibly containing multiple repositories. One of the technicians stepped back from the monitor and murmured, "If this is only the first vault, what else is down there?" Outside the tent, the floodlights flickered, reacting to tremors deep below. The vault groaned like an ancient living creature shifting in its sleep. It was clear the chamber had not welcomed visitors for centuries and was not ready to give itself up without resistance. But the message was undeniable. The Templars did not hide treasure. They constructed a legacy, a coded message meant for those who would one day rediscover the truth. As word of the discovery leaked into private academic circles and artifact insurance assessments began circulating, one final revelation detonated across financial, political, and religious communities worldwide. Official authentication placed the recovery's estimated value at $77 million, and the Canadian government moved instantly to seize control. The discovery inside the vault should have marked the beginning of open celebration, a triumph centuries in the making. Instead, it triggered a chain reaction that none of the crew expected and even fewer understood. Within 48 hours of the first artifact being retrieved from the chamber, official vehicles arrived at Oak Island, escorted by plain-clothed personnel and maritime enforcement units that moved with quiet, unsettling authority. The signs went up almost instantly. Protected historical zone. Federal authorization required no unauthorized access. Surveilled territory. It was no longer a private archaeological dig. Oak Island had become a restricted site. Journalists swarmed the shoreline, cameras trained through telephoto lenses, but all they captured were distant figures in hazmat suits and heavy equipment being dragged toward the shaft under armed watch. Drone operators reported their footage cutting out mid-flight. GPS disappeared, feeds blacked out, hardware rebooted without command. Some claimed their storage cards wiped themselves the moment they crossed the perimeter, erased without trace, as if the island itself rejected witnesses. Inside the excavation tent, panic simmered beneath forced calm. Government representatives demanded control of all physical samples. Hard drives containing scanned images flickered, surged, then died. One crew member whispered afterward that it felt like an invisible hand was scrubbing history clean in real time. The silence from Rick and Marty spoke louder than any denial could. Their eyes carried the weight of men who had chased truth for decades, only to watch it slip toward the machinery of secrecy. When reporters cornered Marty outside the Lunenburg dockyard days later, he delivered a single sentence, sharp and resonant. "We're not looking for legends anymore. We're validating history." That quote detonated across the internet. Within hours, leaked documents from a private European underwriting syndicate revealed staggering numbers. Early valuations placed the verified artifacts recovered so far at $77 million USD, a figure conservative by academic standards. Items listed included gold reliquary fragments bearing Jerusalem cross engravings, dozens of Venetian trade coins fused into coralized clusters, 3 lead tablets etched in an undeciphered cipher, fragments of ceremonial chalice glass dating to the 14th century, Templar seals preserved in mineral casing. Insurance analysts warned privately that authentication of Templar treasure could destabilize the global antiquities market overnight. Legal scholars predicted an avalanche of ownership claims. European nations, royal families, Catholic institutions, and even Vatican representatives could assert historical rights to the find. In Montreal, quietly filed court applications referenced European sovereign heritage claims. In Zurich and Luxembourg, encrypted financial networks lit up with activity. Anonymous accounts tied to historic banking dynasties, the rumored descendants of original Templar financiers, suddenly activated dormant portfolios. Something immense and ancient was moving behind the scenes. Meanwhile, on Oak Island, everything shut down. Satellite phones confiscated. Crew families asked to sign extended non-disclosure agreements. Security doubled. Access reduced to a handful of authorized personnel. Rumors circulated that intelligence agencies were present under the guise of heritage advisors, and that multiple governments were monitoring the excavation. Live the Fellowship, once united in purpose, now worked under surveillance, unable to speak openly, even to each other. But the greatest shock arrived quietly and without ceremony. A coalition of independent metallurgists, historians, and religious conservators confirmed what underground whispers already knew. The artifacts were authentic. The isotopic signature matched verified Templar gold from La Rochelle. Carbon dating aligned perfectly to the Templar purge. The craftsmanship matched archived ecclesiastical records. The treasure was real. The legend was real. The mystery was real. Rick stood alone on the shoreline one evening, holding the fragment he first lifted from the chamber. The gold glowed against the red horizon as Mahone Bay swallowed the sun. Wind cut across the waves like a quiet voice from another time. The mystery never ended, he said softly, almost to himself. It just waited. Behind him, floodlights shimmered over machinery, drilling deeper beneath the garden shaft, toward the sealed lower passages hinted by the coordinate inscriptions. The world watched from behind fences and screens, knowing something remained buried below, something more powerful and dangerous than gold. because the real question still hung heavy, unspoken, but undeniable. If $77 million in confirmed treasure lay in just one chamber, what waits in the others? And why did the Templars hide it? Not for their past, but for our future.